Okay, well, I'm showing 3:15, so we're back, everybody. Welcome back for part two of our Minnesota MUFON monthly public meeting. It is time. You may have enjoyed me, but you're going to love our speaker. You're going to have a fantastic speaker. If you thought I was good, this guy's going to knock your socks off. Our speaker today is Mike Ricksecker. He'll be speaking on the Interdimensional Universe. Researcher Mike Ricksecker is the author of award-winning Travels Through Time, Amazon bestsellers Portals to the Stars, A Walk in the Shadows, and Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, as well as several historic paranormal books. He has appeared on multiple television shows and programs, including History Channel's Ancient Aliens, The Unexplained, and The Unbelievable, the Travel Channel's The Alaska Triangle, Animal Planet's The Haunted, multiple series on Gaia TV, and more. Mike is a producer and director of the docuseries The Shadow Dimension, available on several streaming platforms, and produces additional full-length content on ancient wisdom, lost civilizations, UFOs, and the supernatural on his extensive YouTube channel. Mike also hosts the annual Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour, an exploration of Egypt's pyramids and temples for lost advanced technologies, the secrets of esoteric alchemy, and ancient stargates. A native of Cleveland, Ohio, Mike is a U.S. Air Force veteran with a background in intelligence and a degree in computer simulation programming. He's been researching unexplained phenomenon across the world for over 30 years. I'm really excited to talk to him because I met him back last year at the symposium. Great guy. Was glad he agreed to come and join us. I'm looking forward to this meeting for a presentation for a long time. Minnesota MUFON, give a big round of applause, a big Minnesota welcome to Mr. Mike Ricksecker.
Thank you so much for having me today, and I appreciate the introduction, Tom. Yeah, it was a great symposium last year. It was my first one. I was really happy to be a part of it, and yeah, we were talking a little bit earlier during the break about contact, hoping to get out to there. So yeah, what I want to present for you guys today is on the interdimensional universe. So let me see if I can get the screen share going here. Okay. So my platform is the connected universe because I believe in everything is connected. We'll get into that in a moment. And this is my podcast, Connecting the Universe, that I host every Wednesday night, or at least I try to, because I do travel a lot. So this presentation is based largely on two of my most recent books, Travels Through Time, which is a deep dive into the nature of time, dimensions, and the like, and then Portals to the Stars, which is Stargates, Secrets of Ancient Egypt. You can get into Atlantis within that one. So, all right, the connected universe, and I'll take questions after all of this. So the connected universe is, it's whenever we say, we're all connected, and it sounds like kind of a metaphysical woo-woo type of a concept, like, oh, we're all connected. Well, yeah, we are. And not only to each other right now, us on this particular Zoom call, we're connected to the planet's connected to the sun and the rest of the solar system, our solar system to the galaxy to the universe to what's beyond that. We won't necessarily get into that during this particular talk, although maybe we will a little bit. So I love this photo here, and that's actually what it is. And actually, it's an X-ray image that's been enhanced. So what we're looking at here is a X-ray image of the universe. And each of those little yellow and gold dots there is a galaxy. And you can see this kind of spider web type of filament. And those are basically gaseous filaments that are connecting all of those galaxies together. So when we say that we are connected, we are literally connected to the rest of the universe. It's not just metaphysical woo-woo. So since we're going to be talking about the interdimensional universe and our connections, we do have to do a real brief dimensional primer here. So our theoretical physics show that we have up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions, 0 through 10. Our consciousness is currently in the fourth dimension that we call time. And we have access to all of those other dimensions below us, 0 through 3. There's a controversial 0 dimension, which is the point. You have a line, that's our first dimension. Second dimension is a plane, basically just a flat surface. And then third dimension, those are all of our three-dimensional objects as depicted here with, of course, the cube. And our consciousness is on the fourth dimension. That's kind of an incredible concept because it means we are multidimensional beings because our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside our third dimensional body. And when we pass, our consciousness leaves and goes elsewhere. And of course, that's one of the big questions of the universe is where do we go when we pass away? So that means that all of those other dimensions, 5, 6, 7, 8, and onward, also have access to us in our dimension of time. I'm not going to really get too much into the idea of time travel, but and all time being concurrent, but they do have access to us. And there are other beings and entities living within those dimensions above ours. So hopefully the sound will play here. We got into this a little bit. The first episode of Ancient Aliens that I was on, it was actually an episode on what we call the shadow people. And within this, Michio Kaku and I kind of broke down the way this works. I love Michio's analogy that he uses here with the fish. So um, let me go ahead and play this for you guys. You have a multimedia extravaganza here.
We take for granted that we dimensional universe. The quantum theory makes higher dimensions possible. Think of fish living in a pond, for example. The pond is two-dimensional. The fish are stuck in a two-dimensional world. They cannot visualize.
Can you turn it up at all, Mike?
So is the sound not playing?
I can hear it a little bit, but it's not really coming out. So
Okay, so that means it's not coming through the.
yeah, when you go to share, there should be an option to like share sound or something like that.
All right, let me go back and see if that option is available here. It just says you're sharing the screen, enhance encryption. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing in advanced sharing options. Yeah, I don't know where that would be. So drag to move. Let me see. Screen black and white. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure. I could put the microphone right on top of the computer, I suppose.
Yeah. What about the volume that was in the right hand corner of the slide bar when it was playing?
Yeah, well, there wasn't a slide bar. This is
No, I mean when you go to push the play, yeah, right there, right there. Oh, it was there for a second and went. Was that toward the bottom? Was there? Yeah, right there. Oh, was that? Was there one on the right there? Is that one on the right? Okay,
yeah, I mean that's up all the way. That's
okay.
But there has to be a way to pipe this through the stream. So you're just getting
Yeah. Usually when you click on share, it gives you the option to select your window and then if you want to share the sound or not.
Yeah, let me try that
Some
again.
versions,
So let me stop share and restart.
Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah, there is. Okay, a little checkbox. See, I usually use StreamYard for my podcast and everything. So
that's okay. We have all kinds of technical difficulties on our end, so we're used to it. So
let me make sure that's stage share sound. Share. To share your computer audio, please install Zoom audio device. No, we'll try it again. It's not letting me click on anything. Okay, there we go. zoom off in there. All right, we'll try this one more time.
Cool.
Start installation. All right. Let me know if you can hear it this time.
We take for granted that we live in a three-dimensional universe. The quantum theory makes higher dimensions possible. Think of fish living in a pond, for example. The pond is two-dimensional. The fish are stuck in a two-dimensional world. They cannot visualize a third dimension. But you could lift one of these fishes into the third dimension and they'd be shocked. Shocked to realize there's a whole universe in the third dimension beyond their pond. Well, we physicists, some of us believe that we are the fish. We spent all our life in a three-dimensional pond thinking that that's all there is, but right above us, there could be higher dimensions, hyperspatial dimensions, up to 11.
Theoretically, we have up to 11 dimensions. There may be other entities and other life forms living within these dimensions. Now, how would they look to us if they crossed over those dimensions and entered into our world? Well, maybe a shadow entity is one of these interdimensional beings that has crossed over from some other place in space-time into our world. And we're seeing them as a shadow because their energy and their personal resonance doesn't quite adhere to the energy and the resonance of our planet.
Okay, yeah. I find that a fantastic analogy from Michio when he's talking about the fish. And in that analogy, these kids here would be the interdimensional beings because the whole world, the whole universe to those fish is really everything that is within their pond. They have no idea, who or what these kids are. They have no idea of the bridge that's there, the path beyond, the park, wherever this park is, the city, the cars driving down the road. They have no context of that whatsoever. Their universe is that pond. So that was from the Shadow Person story or the Shadow People episode of Ancient Aliens. So let me give you a little bit of my story here because that was really, how I got started in all of this is I'm an experiencer. And it goes back to when I was about 8 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and there standing in the corner of my bedroom was this tall, dark, shadowy being, what we would call a shadow person. But of course, back then I had no idea whatsoever, of that at all. I thought somebody had broken into the house. It was an intruder. They were there to steal something, kill me, maybe. That's where your mind goes at 8 years old, because I'd seen enough television at that point. But I'm still alive to tell the tale, which is wonderful. And it did do something really unusual. It did get physical with me. So this thing, and of course I see the thing, I'm trying to scream, but nothing's come out of my mouth because I'm just too scared, too frightened. And this thing approached my bed, leaned over. I'm staring into this blank black face. There's nothing there. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Nothing whatsoever. And so then it grabbed me by the wrists. I'm still trying to scream. Still nothing's coming out. Grabs me by the wrists, crosses my arm across my body, runs down the hall, of all places into a closet. And to this day, I still have no idea why it ran into the closet. It was the closet portal or something. I don't know. At that point, I ran off screaming to my parents' bedroom, going on about what had happened. And they're trying to have nice parents. They're trying to console me, calm me down, trying to tell me that I just had a bad dream. But I knew I had had a bad dream. I was awake for this whole thing. So, fast forward some years later, and this was really just a one-off for this particular house. I would never call it a haunted house or anything like that. The next house that we moved into several years later had a lot more going on there with that sort of thing. But as I started getting involved in the community and learning more and talking with people, and getting a little bit older, I started to reflect upon this incident. Started to tell my story. I was a bit reluctant at first, but I had some people suggest, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. A couple people totally separate from each other and years apart suggest that, well, maybe maybe they thought that you were dead, lying there in bed, and they were crossing your arms and putting you into some sort of burial pose, like crook and flail sort of thing out of Egypt. And it's like, well, that's kind of interesting. I never really thought of it like that. Let me start considering some other options here as to what exactly was going on. So, because of this suggestion of Egypt, before the first time I went to Egypt, and I currently run a Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. We have our fourth one coming up next March, so a year from now. This March 21st through April 2nd. And so I wanted to find out, okay, what exactly happened with this? So I reached out to a clinical hypnotherapist, and we did a past life regression, all that sort of thing. But we went to this moment. And what was really, really interesting is we were actually able to channel this being and actually converse with it. And what we discovered, without getting into all the details, we discovered that this was a being that we would call interdimensional. And that was because of, she's asking, her name was Ariana. She's asking things like, why were you there? Where are you from? That sort of thing. And the where are you from answer, the response was, well, I'm from another space. And Ariana followed up with, well, do you mean another dimension? And the response to that was kind of interesting because it was, well, you might call it another dimension, but really it's another space, giving us this idea that while we do have some ideas and concepts of how that works, we still have a lot to learn. And basically, the reason why it was there to study humanity. It was essentially part of a research team. And it was assigned to the room of a small child that evening, and didn't realize until I started reacting that I could see it. It was supposed to be invisible to me, but apparently it was not. And so when it realized that it was actually scaring the child, it came up to me and crossed my arms like that, actually to put me into a self hug. And then I could see from this perspective, because I was actually seeing it from the perspective of the entity rather than myself when we were channeling this thing, which was really, really interesting. But I could see it pat me on the wrist, like to kind of reassure me, and then got out of there. So to just stop scaring me. So it was really, really fascinating perspective that, okay, I've been interacting with things on an interdimensional nature since I was a very, very young child. What is this world all about? Okay, in which dimension did it come from? First thing, we have up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions. Was it from the fifth? Was it from the sixth? Which one was it from? So that, of course, sent me down a whole other rabbit hole of my research. So there we go. So we mentioned earlier about us being, our consciousness being on the fourth dimension, and we're multidimensional beings, fourth dimensional consciousness inside the third dimensional body. And even science is really starting to recognize this. So this is research, Stuart Hameroff, Roger Penrose. You might recognize the name Penrose from the film Inception, the Penrose Stairs, that whole the paradoxical stairs. He's the guy that came up with that. So research that these guys have been doing for really over 30 years. They're actually have this concept of the soul being housed within the microtubules in the brain. And then after we pass, the soul goes off to the cosmos, is what they say. Now, when they're asked, okay, where in the cosmos does it go? Their response is, well, we don't really know. So, but that's our question. Where does it go? Is it one of these other dimensions? Is it something even beyond that? Is it even another universe? And what's interesting about this now, I'm actually not one of those that is on board with the idea that every time we make a decision, it spawns off another universe. There's I mean, we each make a decision every moment that we talk, move, all that. You know, we make thousands, if not millions of decisions a day. Me picking up this water bottle right now is me making a decision. Does that spawn off another universe? Um, I don't think so. So some people say, well, it's the major decisions that you make, like, you know, buying a new house, having a baby, things like that. Well, some major decisions for some people are very, very minor for others, and vice versa. So, for instance, me crossing the street one day, very minor decision. Doesn't make it really doesn't make that much of a difference to me. But let's say there was a car coming around the corner and had to stop right there while I was crossing the street. And let's say it's stopping there further down the road prevented it from getting into an accident or caused it later on because of the timing to get into an accident. So very, very minor decision for me, big decision and big ramifications for that other person. So that doesn't really work either. So for me, the jury's still out on that sort of thing, but I still believe in multiple universes because going back to our physics, they've actually shown that outside of our universe, there may be these other physical universes. They kind of liken them to bubble universes that actually exist. That some are like ours, that essentially almost like our planet ended up in a nice Goldilocks zone and was able to develop and create galaxies and solar systems and all that. Others, um, they fired up really quick, burned out too quickly. Others just don't get enough of the nuclear and chemical components to get going, and they never really get started. But we happen to be one that essentially ended up in that nice zone. So I do believe that these other universes are out there, and we could, through different means, be able to get to those. So another one that's come up here lately is, are we living in a black hole? And this is actually something that's come up here recently with the James Webb Telescope. And I love this. A couple of years ago, they turned on the James Webb Telescope, and the scientists are like, wow, there's a lot more out there than we previously thought. And it's like, you think? It's like they thought they were just going to get a crisper image of the universe, and they discovered there's actually more to it. Go figure that. So yeah, we keep discovering more and more things. Well, group of scientists last year, based on them looking through the James Webb Telescope and seeing a particular curvature, started to wonder, well, is that curvature that we're seeing actually indicative of us living in a black hole? Is that what all these different universes are that are out there are different black holes? Are the black holes that are within our universe also other small universes? So it's a really, really fascinating concept. Could be true. It's actually not that much of a new concept. I don't know how many people remember the film The Black Hole. It was actually Disney's first non-G rated film. It was the first one of their films that got a PG rating because I mean you had the killer robot Maximilian that was just annihilating people and a really, really dark ending to it. And that dark ending, which was like really the last 10 minutes of film, there's no dialogue. Um, and basically you see this melding of man and machine, this hellscape and all this stuff. But then our heroes that escape, everybody's getting sucked into the black hole. They end up going through this tunnel of light and they come out in spaces in front of them. And you're kind of left to wonder, okay, what happened to them? Did they die and they end up there? But it's actually just space. What exactly is it? Well, I had the little 45 RPM story record that Disney put out, and it actually has a little bit of a different ending. So it has the very last page. They are in that new area, and they basically say it's another universe, and they are going to go and explore this new universe. So the concept that these black holes lead to new universes isn't exactly new, but I always like it when science starts to catch up to our science fiction. We put these ideas and concepts out there, get the mind churning on different ideas and concepts about our universe, and then all of a sudden science starts showing that, oh, actually that might be the case. So if we're talking about other dimensions and traveling across the cosmos and things like this, we do have to kind of briefly talk about the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. But that idea that you want to get to two different distant places across the universe, or it could even be across dimensions, even points in time, that they're too far. We don't have the resources to get there. Human life would be expunged, maybe even take millions of years to get there. So, if we could bend space and time and bring those 2 points closer together, we could connect them with a tunnel and be able to travel there much more quickly. We see this in a lot of our science fiction these days. And this is kind of the classic idea of that wormhole as you're traveling through. You see this in, well, the film Stargate, Contact, even Star Wars has a variation of it, and you're zipping off to some other place in the galaxy or the universe. Well, I really like the way that Interstellar portrayed it, because they tapped physicist Kip Thorne to consult on the film. And really, when you go back and see, can I go backwards here? If I go, nope. Hang on a second. I want to go back here. 2 slides. So if we look at our Einstein-Rosen bridge, really what you're looking at are, 2 circles being connected by the tunnel there. Even like the film Stargate, it shows like a giant circle that they walk into. Well, a circle in 2-dimensional space, or a circle is 2-dimensional, but a circle in 3-dimensional space is actually a sphere. So when we actually come across something that would be a wormhole or portal or Stargate or something like this, would probably most likely be spherical in nature rather than just a giant circle standing there in front of you. And when we get into the topic of portals, this becomes, again, one of those topics that a lot of people say, well, that's science fiction. You're talking films and television shows. Well, our science has shown that we do actually have portals outside of our planet. And they keep changing the name. Now they're diffusion points. They used to be X points. And years ago, over 10 years ago now, NASA did admit that, well, these were portals. And when we were at the MUFON Symposium last year, Jason Quitt and I both showed this same slide for our presentations because they were related topics. And he informed me, and I wasn't aware of this, that NASA actually took down the article that had this particular slide on it and where they were calling it portals. Apparently, they're trying to get as far away from that as possible, probably because of the connotation of science fiction. But basically, this is where the solar wind and the Earth's magnetosphere meet. And it's really, really fascinating because what's happening is these holes are essentially opening up. What they're saying are portals. And it's allowing the solar wind to have direct access to the Earth. So this is where like massive auroras and things like this come from. They have had up there for 10 years now 4 satellites that are monitoring this. And they still, after 10 years, have no predictive model for it whatsoever. They can just watch and observe. So these portals, these X points, will open up at random intervals. They don't know how large they're going to open. They don't know when they're going to close. They don't know how big they're going to be. They can just watch and observe. Now, the Earth's magnetosphere, and here's the 4 satellites here, the magnetospheric multiscale mission. Now, I'm jumping a little bit ahead. Now, the interaction between the Earth's magnetosphere and the solar wind, I mean, that's all the way down to the surface of the planet, which means that these portals can open up anywhere within there, all the way down to the ground. And I would even say into the ocean, as long as you're still having a bit of that interaction. So we had on, this is one of my podcasts, Edge of the Rabbit Hole. We had Ronnie LeBlanc on there. You might recognize him from Expedition Bigfoot. And we were discussing with him about these portals opening up in the wilderness. So I'm going to play this clip real quick for you. You think like you have a lot of these missing people, and sometimes when these missing people are found or they find their way back, they'll talk about, hey, I was on the path, heard a noise out in the woods, I took a step off the path, couldn't find what the noise was, turned around to get back on the path, and it was gone, and they're lost out in the woods. So do you think that some of these missing people cases are maybe they're stepping into, whether it's a portal or a vortex or whatever the mode of transportation is that maybe the Sasquatch is using? Do you think they're stepping into something like that?
Yeah, I do. I think there's, the Algonquin tribe talk about in Vermont that there's a specific boulder that if you step on it, you're going somewhere. And so they're talking about it being this portal. And I think that's where some of these reports where people are going into areas and they're having rocks thrown at them, or they're having these Bigfoot encounters, is they could be protecting people from going into these spots where you're walking in through a portal or something like this. Because you just have these incredible stories where people are there 1 minute and they're completely gone.
Yeah.
I mean, David Pilates' work, Missing 411,
Right.
terrifying stuff when you start realizing and reading about how people are just gone and no trace. Like what is taking them, where are they going?
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating because you hear the stories of, two people walking out in the woods, and all of a sudden, you turn and your buddy's gone, and you have no idea where they went, what happened to them. There's a fascinating account from Alaska. I've done a lot of work on the Alaska Triangle. I was on that particular television show as well. And in 2012, Michael LeMaitre was a very public race, mountain marathon race up and down the mountain. They have checkpoints all along the way. And he disappeared in this very public race. And they got the state troopers out there and the dogs and everything, thinking maybe he fell down somewhere or what. Completely disappeared. No idea what happened to him still to this day. Some people do come back and they tell these fascinating stories of, they were walking in the woods, heard a sound off to the edge, took 2 steps out into the woods to take a look, looking around, can't find the source, turn around, the path is gone. What happened to them? Did they step into some sort of portal that took them to maybe somewhere else in the woods? Maybe it took them to another point in time. Maybe another dimension temporarily. You hear stories about this all the time, even to the point of 150 years ago, 200 years ago, you had those old folk tales of the fairies, and people would go out to the woods and get caught up in the ring of fairies, and a friend of theirs finally pulls them out. The whole story of Reese and Llewellyn, and pulled them out, and Reese thought he'd been in there for 5 minutes. Well, it's like it's been a whole day. So really fascinating. You think it can happen? So this is our buddy, the Sasquatch, with the portal behind me. Yes, this is AI, but my wife, Kate, she's a QHHT practitioner. She also does the past life regressions and everything. And she had a really fascinating session with somebody. And this was actually shown in part on Gaia TV, and Kate's made it accessible on her YouTube channel with permission, of course, from the client. And neither of these women are into Sasquatch at all. But within this session, this woman described she's in a tunnel. She called it like a tunnely funnely thing, which it's kind of humorous. But she's traveling through it and comes out. She's out in the woods, and she starts describing herself as, well, wait a minute, I've got like all this hair on my arms and hands and feet. She's like, I think I'm one of these like Bigfoot type things. So the idea and concept that some of these beings that you see out in the woods, like the Sasquatch and what have you, are actually moving through other dimensions using portals. There's a part of that session in which they go into an inner earth. They're using crystals to store information and things like this. And again, neither of these women are into Sasquatch at all. And this was coming out of the session, which was really, really fascinating. So portals above the wilderness. This is another one that we covered in the Alaska Triangle. A lot of the missing airplanes up there, just, where did they go? And even, you go to the Malaysia flight, where in the world did that go? Just disappeared off the face of the earth. And one of the ideas that we explored within that show was the possibility that it passed through some sort of portal. We brought Bruce Gernon from the Bermuda Triangle onto the show to talk about his experience of the clouds forming up in front of him. He called it an electronic fog, but basically it was a tunnel, and he zipped through it, and all of a sudden the city of Miami is below him, and he zipped ahead in time about an hour, which almost doesn't make any sense. But again, with time not really existing, and the fact that from the fifth, sixth, seventh, and onward dimensions, you can look at time as one whole object, and each moment being a certain frequency. If you're able to attune yourself to that particular frequency, you could zip ahead or zip backwards to different points in time. So that's another thing that these portals could be used for. Now, something else that I've thrown out here as a possibility that we did not do on the show, I've put it in a couple of my books, like Alaska's Mysterious Triangle and Portals to the Stars, is okay, if it passed through a portal somewhere, where did it go? Did it go to another dimension? Did it go to another point in time, like with Bruce? If it did go to another point in time, yeah, it could zip ahead in time like Bruce, which obviously it didn't, because we would have found it by now. But what if it went backward? And we could just throw an arbitrary number on it, like 500 years. Well, let's say it went 500 years into the past. Well, what would the indigenous people of the area think of an airplane suddenly above their heads? Because they would have no context whatsoever of that. The only thing that they would know, being in the sky, flying like that, would be birds. And this one is very, very loud, very thunderous. Is this where some of the Thunderbird legends come from? Are from modern aircraft zipping through a portal into the past? And here's your Thunderbird. I don't have my preview bar here, so so it's thrown this a little off for me. So I do apologize for that. I would have done a little bit of a better transition there, but yeah, becomes maybe our Thunderbird legends. Not saying all of them, but some of them. Another portal above the wilderness that we can consider are these huge balls of light that we've seen in the sky. And this is something that's been reported for, I mean, you guys know, for decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years. People have been seeing these things in the sky. We cover them on Ancient Aliens and a bunch of the other shows. And we mentioned earlier about the spherical hole, the spheres themselves actually being the portals rather than a circle standing there. So this was actually a photo that was taken. Actually, it's a snippet from a video clip that was taken during the big drone flap about a year and a half ago, but not from here. This was not New Jersey, which that's what everybody was focusing on, or at least a lot of people were. And people were seeing these drones all over the country, all over the world. And many of them, even some government officials, were seeing the drones move in and out of the balls of light. So this was in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I actually had multiple people reach out to me with photos and videos from, it was December 20th that year. I guess that would have been 2024. And what was fascinating about it was transformative in nature. It went from this ball of light to then like a diamond shape, which was kind of interesting. It's been seen there multiple times. Now, yeah, the new administration came in, finally gave us an excuse for the drone, say, well, we were doing some testing. And I mean, honestly, I had initially been saying this is probably some government testing. Okay, they're drones. A lot of this in New Jersey is near a base, so just say you're doing some testing and leave it at that, rather than all of this speculation and I don't want to say panic, but different things that people were getting in a little tizzy about. And so I'll still say this. I do think a lot of it was government testing, but some of these in which you're having these balls of light up there. They never answer the question about the balls of light. They didn't answer the questions about the drones all over the country and all over the world. It was only the New Jersey ones they're talking about. But even there, people were seeing the balls of light, and people were seeing drones going in and out of the balls of light. So to me, one of the ideas that I've thrown out there about this is, okay, so let's say maybe you're an extraterrestrial, maybe you're an ultra-terrestrial, or an interdimensional being of some sort. Maybe you're time traveler, maybe it's us from the future, that sort of thing. Well, if you want to go back and study humanity, wouldn't it make kind of sense to maybe mimic their technology, so you're kind of masked, you kind of blend in a little bit, and develop some sort of technology that looks like theirs. You see some of these different time travel shows and things like that. Had one offhand, the show Timeless, or the movie Somewhere in Time. What do? They would dress in the garb of the time. Well, same with technology. Mask the technology in the garb of the time and bring it here. And while everybody's getting in a tizzy about the drones, you're watching and observing, doing whatever the heck it is you're doing. Again, the balls of light would be that portal, that access to be able to move between, whether it's another place in the cosmos, another dimension, wherever. All right. Well, I mentioned earlier that I do the Stargates of Ancient Egypt tour. So we're going to talk a bit about this for a moment, because we're talking portals. We got to talk Stargates. The difference between a portal and a Stargate. So a portal is something, like we're seeing with the X-points, something that's naturally occurring. A Stargate would be an intelligent being's ability to harness that natural, randomly occurring portal and bend it to its will. That's the difference to me. We do have evidence right in plain sight of Stargates in Egypt who had hieroglyphs, learning hieroglyphs on their bingo card for today. Because you are going to very quickly learn a little bit about hieroglyphs. So what we're looking at here, and this is on one of what we call Stargate chambers in the Temple of Seti at Abydos. And you're looking on the left there, the cartouche there is the cartouche of Seti. He's basically the king that had the authority over the Stargate. But if we go back to the right, and this one reads right to left, and that's because of, if you look at the foot, it's pointing to the right, and that tells us we need to start reading this from the right. So we have two letters in this word here, and we have two what are called determinatives. They are symbols that help us determine what the word is. So the ancient Egyptian language was mostly phonetic. We do have ideograms and the determinatives and other things that help us along. But figuring out that it was also very phonetic is what helped Champollion crack the code back in the 1800s. So our first symbol is actually a folded sheet, and that is our letter S. The second symbol is a star. It's one of our determinatives, help us to tell us what the word is. The second symbol is the foot. That is the ancient Egyptian symbol for the letter B. So we have two letters now, S and B. And then our fourth symbol there is a gate. So so we have two letters, two determinatives. Our letters SB. Ancient Egyptians did not have vowels in their writing, so it's kind of implied in the Coptic language, which descended from it, helps us to figure out the pronunciation. So the word is Saba, S-A-B-A, in English. And of course, our determinatives, star and gate, tell us exactly this is a Stargate. So I'm going to play a quick clip here from Hatshepsut's temple. To me, this is really the epitome of a Stargate in ancient Egypt. The setup is just absolutely amazing.
We see here beautifully carved falcon. But what's interesting about this piece is look along the backside, the railing up the stairs. What is that look like to you? Did I hear somebody say snake? Yeah, snake tail. This may not be the actual original carving. This may have been recarved from a snake, maybe a cobra. But when you have that snake energy running up, you have a perfect picture of energy running up to inside the temple. And when we get up there, we'll see more of that Stargate symbolism, and then it goes straight up into the Holy of Holies. Off on the side here, you see these ruins back here. This is the base of an ancient pyramid. And it could be that pre-diluvians built a pyramid here, and then the dynastics coming in later took the ruins and built a temple. So you have a pyramid harnessing energy here. You have the snakes bringing the energy up into the temple there. And we'll see when we go inside why they're doing that.
Yeah, so to me, that is really the perfect setup of a Stargate. The pyramid harnessing the energy, feeding it into there. You have the that ancient snake energy, the serpentine. Like we talk, the serpentine lines, the ley lines, dragon lines, all that. That's what it's symbolizing, right? All the way back up into through the first gate. Which is actually labeled as a Great Stargate. You take that into the inner courtyard to the hall that basically goes into the side of the cliff, and they call that the Bark Hall, the transportation for the gods. And then right on the side of that, and that entrance, you have Stargate again. And what I find hilarious is the sign below it, "Dear tour guides, kindly don't explain inside this part." We appreciate your cooperation. The officials never want you to like truly explain what's really going on at these places. And there it is. Don't explain it, but we do. And so this is the so you get into the Bark Hall, and you're going to get stopped by this guy that I'm taking a photo with there. There's actually two guys there. You're not allowed past. So you can't get into the Holy of Holies. But for a tip, you can have him take that photo of you that's there on the left. But if you get there early enough in the day or late enough in the day, basically if the public really isn't around so much, you can tip them a lot, and they'll take you back there for this particular photo, which is on the right-hand side of the Holy of Holies, which to me is the epitome of a Stargate, that cartouche full of stars, which is absolutely wonderful. So this was the Stargate chamber, that Holy of Holies. This one here is from Abydos, another place loaded with Stargates, and I just included this here because it's a cool photo. You get there at the right time of the day, and the skylight there, you can capture the light. But that one has, oh my gosh, this is one of two in the Hall of Ptah Soker. You've got each of the seven chapels there are labeled as Stargates, and then in the Hall of Osiris, you have three more. So that place is loaded with Stargate chambers. So another ancient symbol, we're talking ancient symbolism here with the Egyptian hieroglyphs, but another symbol that we can look at that signifies a portal is the spiral. I believe actually the spiral has multiple meanings, but you have indigenous cultures from all over the world telling us that this was their symbol for spiral. And it blows my mind sometimes when you have traditional academia say, well, no, it's forget their myths and legends. We believe it was a symbol for water. Well, actually, the ancient symbol for water was a jagged line. You see that in multiple cultures. Or they'll say something like, well, we believe it was a migration pattern, and just kind of head scratching, like migration pattern. Who in the world migrates in a spiral? Yeah, it makes no sense. Like, yeah, we want to go to the other side of the mountain over there, about 50 miles. We're going to do like Yellow Brick Road, the way that starts, and go in a spiral. And no, that makes no sense. So you have Chaco Canyon in the American Southwest in New Mexico there on the left. In the middle is Sardinia, one of the Italian islands. And then on the left, that is that's actually the Nubian Museum in Aswan in Egypt. And it's the cosmic egg with a spiral. So you're talking creation and then a portal. And actually, I don't know if I have the slide here. Do I? No, I don't. But Serpent Mound here in Ohio is really, really fascinating because you have the spiral on the tail, and then you have the snake, and then the egg. So you basically have from the portal, you have the energy spawning creation, basically, is what it is. So that spiraling energy, that symbol of the spiral, is really is symbolic of the energy that these portals to these other places, whether it's other dimensions and what have you, actually have. We go back to the Earth's magnetism, which starts at the core of the Earth, and it's a spinning ball of iron going around and around and around, creating our magnetic field, which is, of course, that's helpful for us. It protects us from the sun, but as it's coming up through the Earth, it's interacting with different metals and minerals, and depending on the metal or mineral and the quantity of it, it creates these different localized electromagnetic fields, which are measurable as what a lot of people call a vortex, an energy vortex. Well, a vortex, you think about a tornado or a whirlpool or something like that, is basically spiraling. And if you were to just, that's a three-dimensional representation. If you were to take that into a two-dimensional representation, then you would have your spiral like this. So we've had scientists, the Dragon Project, and others out there. And Dragon Project was a bunch of scientists in the late 70s, early 1980s. You can actually find a few different books on their work, which are really fascinating. And they were able to find this spiraling energy, a number of different stone circles throughout the UK. This one here is the Rollright stones, which is, you have to think about this. You look at those small stones right now. They're weathered, they're beaten down. Think of this back in the day when they were large, when they were in their full glory. All of them were there. This would have like really, really harnessed that energy. But you can go there and it's still measurable now. And last April, or this would have actually happened very, very beginning of last May, my wife Kate and I actually had a UFO experience while we were driving to the Rollright Stones. We were almost there, and this happened. So, excuse my little bit of special effects with the UFO here. It was me attempting a little bit of AI, and yeah, it didn't really work out too well. So we are here at the Whispering Nights, which is part of the Rollright Stones complex. Kate has already been here once before, had some amazing experiences that you may have read about in Portals to the Stars. But as we were driving in, we saw basically out over the countryside there. I'll show you. That's the countryside. Our car was basically on a road back there, and Kate noticed it at first because she was in the passenger seat. You want to describe what you saw?
Yeah, sure. So I was just sitting in the car looking out at the land, beautiful land, and then something caught my eye. I saw something like shimmering and shiny in the sky, and I looked at it and I thought, Mike, look at that. I was like, that doesn't look like a plane. And he says maybe it's a glider or something.
At first, because it was just gliding across the sky.
Very smoothly.
Yeah. Initially I'm thinking, okay, glider. But as you got a closer look, it was, to me, I noticed it was more disc shaped in nature. It was white, it was silvery. You thought it was more like a cylinder?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so basically I thought, I'm kind of sure that isn't a plane. And we thought, I would like to see it, And then when I looked in the sky again, following it was a helicopter. And I thought, okay, so that's suspicious to me, because if there's a helicopter following it, then that isn't a plane.
Right. Yeah, so definitely not a plane. We did see a plane as we were walking into the complex a little while ago, and against this overcast sky, it was black. Against that, so yeah, and even the helicopter was kind of blackish in nature.
Yeah, it was black. It was really obvious. And the thing is that when we actually saw the like the cylinder kind of shape that we saw, it was incredible, because when I went out on the road to look for it, all I could see was a helicopter and it was gone.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that on our way into the Rollright Stones, a place abundant with energy, that right over this area was a UFO. So as we were walking back, Kate noticed this depression in the grass, some sort of circle that's, we don't know because we can't get out there, of course. Is it some sort of crop circle? Is it associated perhaps with the UFO that we spotted earlier? Same shape, similar size, all of that to what we saw in the sky earlier. Fascinating to find it out here in the grass like this.
Yeah, it was a really amazing experience. We're headed to the Roll Rice Zones, very, very energetic location. There have been known UFO sightings out there, and we just see this thing gliding across the sky. And as we turn that corner, hoping to get a better glimpse of it, and we couldn't because the trees ended up in our way. Here's that black helicopter just headed right off after it. So that was pretty fascinating.
So we're here.
So, all right, quickly we'll go through the different uses of stargates. Again, stargates being our intelligent beings harnessing the power of a portal to bend it to their will. The traditional sense, intergalactic travel. We see that in the films, using it, to go from our world to somewhere else in the cosmos, across the galaxy, another galaxy in the universe. Yeah, that's basically Stargate in its traditional sense. Also interplanetary travel. So, it's really, really fascinating how we see like Chichen Itza, the step pyramid at Saqqara look very much alike. We just saw earlier the spirals all over the world, but then you have the pine cones, the handbags, the T shapes that are all very similar. Symbolism, also a lot of the different, ancient stories, like the whether it's a great cataclysm or the seven sages, or a lot of different stories from across the world that have somehow as a shared history. In traditional academia tries to tell us like, no, they were all separate, they all developed separately on their own, but yet they had to have had some sort of connections, too eerily familiar. So yeah, you can use these gateways to also move to other places on the planet. And on Elephantine Island, going back to Egypt here real quick, you have two primary temples on the island, mostly built by Hatshepsut. Tutmos III came in afterward, added some things to it. Remember, Hatshepsut is, her temple there is epitome of a Stargate. She's also one of our Stargate kings who, I said she and king, but she called herself a king. We call her a queen today, but she always called herself a king. She's one of our Stargate kings. So you always find her cartouche by the Stargate symbolism. Well, the Temple of Khnum at the top is completely obliterated, except for the gate itself. In fact, the one side of it looks like some sort of force just blew through and knocked over the temple, like they were just some kids' building blocks. So it's like, what in the world happened there? It wasn't an earthquake, some other force. But the temple down the hill, the Temple of Satet, as you start heading back toward the Holy of Holies, there is a depiction of what looks like a Mayan headdress on top of Satet. So, it's not something that you find in Egypt, that type of headdress, but you do find in the ancient Mayan culture, and there it is. So, was there a connection from this Stargate back to the Mayan culture, which, yeah, they were supposed to have developed at different times. So was it not just traveling to some other place across the globe, but also traveling through time? Possibly. You could also just use it for communication. You don't have to just you don't you're not restricted to physically walking through it. If you just need to deliver a message, you could actually just send communication through there. It doesn't always have to be physical travel with your body. Of course, we've been talking the possibilities of interdimensional travel pretty much in and out this entire discussion, because we are talking about the interdimensional universe. So yeah, you can use the Stargate to travel to other dimensions, 5, 6, 7, 8, and onward. And also time travel, which I've been alluding to here as well. So that's a artist representation of the Versailles time slip, one of those more famous ones. So our UAPs, time travelers. So we were talking a little bit about that earlier with the giant balls of light, that, yeah, you could have somebody from the future coming back. And I would say I think some are. Um, there are people that believe that all UAPs, all UFOs are time travelers, um, and I just chalk it up to some. Or are they us from the future? I mean, I believe that yeah, there are ones that are physically from some other place in the universe. I believe a lot of UAPs are interdimensional in nature, coming from some other civilization that's living alongside of us, just in another dimension, what we would call an ultra terrestrial. Um, doesn't even necessarily have to be us if it's a time traveler, because you know, millions of years from now, humanity might not be here, but some other civilization could be. We're at a really, really unique time. We're pretty much like right in the middle of our Earth's history. So the Earth's been around for about 4.5 billion years. We're supposed to be around for about another 5 billion. So we're kind of right in the middle of that. And humanity itself has been, they keep changing the number. The last official number was 315,000 years. But there are some studies coming out of China now where they may have found some bones of a Homo sapien from 1 million years ago, which would kind of blow that number out of the water. But the conventional number right now is 315,000 years for humanity. So really, really just a speck. If you think about dinosaurs, dinosaurs went extinct 64 million years ago, which is about 1.5% of the total lifetime of our planet ago. So we have a lot more left to go in the history of this planet, which means, yeah, a million years from now, humans could have annihilated themselves, or maybe we had to get off the planet because of whatever was going on here. A lot of different possibilities. Well, if humanity is no longer around, well, another intelligent civilization could spring up, develop technology, including time travel technology, and come back. Or even millions of years from now, again, humanity's gone. Extraterrestrials find the planet, settle here, develop a civilization, including time travel technology, and come back. So, yeah, it could be humans from the future, could be some other indigenous civilization to Earth millions of years from now, could even be extraterrestrials colonized Earth and came back. Which, by the way, at one point, how many generations does it take for an extraterrestrial living here to become an Earthling? I always throw that question out there because I find it interesting. Because like with my family, how many years in America did it take or how many generations in America did it take for us to be considered Americans? So, same with extraterrestrials. And if we've had extraterrestrials living here for decades and decades and decades, at what point did the extraterrestrials living here are actually be considered Earthlings? And so, how close are we? Yeah. So, scientists have actually, on the quantum level, created a baby wormhole in the lab back in 2022. So, a little over 3 years now. And basically, what they did was they created two tiny black holes and they connected them with a wormhole on the quantum level. And it's, I guess, scratch your head like, let's try not to make those black holes too big. We don't want to get the Earth sucked into those. But yeah, they created two tiny black holes, created or connected them with a wormhole, and kind of like with our communication aspect, they sent a message through. Now they were asked, well, could you send a dog through or something like that? And the scientists kind of laughed at them, like, what do you mean a dog? Why do we go straight to sending a life form through? Like, we'd probably send a probe through first, but they sent a message. Their first um, wormhole they communicated through, and it was successful. So this is something to keep an eye on as we progress down this. This is kind of our modern foray into it. The ancients had this technology long ago, and our modern society is starting to breach that. And I believe a lot of that technology is with us. It's either a rediscovery or we're trying to figure out some sort of extraterrestrial technology to help make this happen. And then you have some other scientists that are trying to create it natively. So, but we'll get there. We'll be traveling. I can't necessarily say in our lifetimes, but it might be our children or our grandchildren will be traveling across the cosmos, will be traveling through dimensions in the future. So, all right, I want to thank you all very much for letting me speak today, and I'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions.
Okay, if you got questions in the chat, put them in the chat. And I've got some hands here in the room. So I'm going to start with Mike, and I'm going to head back to Joe. Continue 2 hands right off the bat. Let me get the microphone, and I'll head on over to them.
I'm Mike. My name is Mike, too. I've got 3 questions. They're quick.
Sure.
That part in Ohio that you had, what part of Ohio was that? Because I grew up in Ohio.
Yeah, Serpent Mountain. That's down in Adams County, so it's like the very southern part of Ohio.
Near what city? You know?
It's not really near much of anything. So
Like Dayton,
just,
Columbus,
go to
or
Chillicothe and keep going south.
kind of close to Chillicothe? Okay.
Yeah.
And you said there are 11 dimensions. How do we know there are 11, and why do you think there are 11 and not like 10 or 12?
Right. I mean, that's according to our theoretical physics. So basically, when it comes to those guys, it's math. You know, I can't say that I totally understand their equations, but even those guys tend to argue. It seems like the majority of them today say 0 to 11, or I'm sorry, 0 to 10 or 1 to 10. You do have some that believe there may be even more dimensions, but they haven't quite worked out those equations yet. So that's traditionally over the last 40 years. A great source for that would be I showed the clip with Michio. He has a number of books. Parallel Worlds would be a great book of his to check out on that.
Okay, what about time? You talked about we're in the 4th dimension.
Right.
Would the dimensions 1, 2, and 3 would time there be different than ours? I would assume that time above us would be different. So my question is, are the lower dimensions and higher dimensions, is time different? How is it different? Do we have an idea of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for those, the easier one to answer is the ones above us are outside of time. They would see time as an object, much like we see a 3-dimensional object, as being all inclusive right in front of us. So it's like the film Interstellar, again, I think did a really good job of trying to portray that, where they dumped Cooper into what they called the Tesseract, and he could see every moment of his daughter's bedroom. And so that's somebody in a dimension above ours would have access to every moment. So the dimensions below ours, yeah, they would see things a bit differently than we do. Their experience would be different, just like ours is going to be different from those above ours. So I guess I could describe it this way. So dimensions below us don't have the same geometry that we do. So those that are on like a 2-dimensional plane, they would not see 3-dimensional objects like us. They would see, like, if you just dropped a sphere into their world, they would essentially see, like, if you're dropping it straight into their world, they would see basically like a small circle start to get wider and wider. It start small and get wider and wider and wider until it, reached its apex, and then it would, come back down. Only experiencing the circle because they wouldn't have the full concept of what that circle would be. So the idea of time would, yes, probably work a bit different for them as well, because they wouldn't have any, perception of that either.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Cool. Okay. I don't know if it looks like we might have one in the chat, but I'm going to go over here to Joe first, and then we'll be able to unmute that person in the chat in just a minute. But this is going to really put you to the test, Michael.
You kind of startled me when you mentioned the first name of past life that I had in there. And okay, when I was working with it, it was 11 dimensions, vector dimensions for space-time. Okay. And I find it really interesting that the human brain is wired as an 11-dimensional matrix. And as a remote viewer, I was able to go into past lives and future lives and look at multiple timelines. And I was trained in the 70s under the Gateway experience.
Oh, nice.
And deployed for the Montauk Project.
Mm-hmm.
So now another thing, you were talking about portals. The U.S. Air Force in 2003 published a paper and was released to the public in 2004 on teleportation. And in that paper, a fellow by the name of Hal Puthoff,
Yeah.
which you may have heard of,
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
wrote down an equation for a portal based on a tangent waveform. And it was a rough equation for it, but there are other features that can be added to that for the size to gauge the to and from points of infinity and the size of the portals. And your balls of light may actually be portal openings. So,
Right.
those are just a few things. I have a lot more I could tell you, but
No, I appreciate it.
some of the projects were classified. So,
Sure. Well, I'm familiar with that. I spent 6 years in the Air Force. A couple of those years were at NSA, and so I definitely know from not being able to speak on a few things.
yeah, when I was in the Air Force, I helped build a couple of vehicles.
Oh, okay.
So, but not with Earth people.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, looks like we had someone in the chat. Do we have someone in the chat? Oh yeah, go ahead and unmute her. Reese, we're going to unmute you so you can speak to Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Again, thank you so much for coming out and presenting at our meeting. It's been an incredible presentation. I can tell that everybody's really enjoyed it. I have two questions, and they're very different questions. The first one is if you could speak a little bit about the Mandela effect. You talked a little bit about different timelines and dimensions. I'm wondering how the Mandela effect might tie into that. And then my second question, earlier this fall, we had a wonderful presenter, Brian Jackson, came and presented to us about Dan Barish. And he told, one of the things he told us about Dan Barish's connection with the J-Rod, who he was tasked to work with at S4, was that the J-Rod was eventually brought to Egypt and sent back to his home planet in a Stargate. And I was just wondering if you knew anything about that or could speak to that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, the first one, the Mandela effect. This gets into a lot of my work in the book Travels Through Time. I have a whole chapter on that, and I've had an interesting experience with the Mandela effect, and not any of those when you go out to Google and do top Mandela effect, the stuff like Fruit Loops and all that stuff. Yeah. Nobody's going, I'll just say this, nobody's going back in time to change branding. That's just really trivial. But things are happening where, the past is being changed. And so, again, from the other dimensions, 5, 6, 7, 8 and onward, they see time all as an object, all of time from beginning to end, which tells us that all time is concurrence, all here right now, past, present, and future. I liken it to, I have a thing that I call stack time theory. I liken it to each moment in that stack, or each moment is like a photograph in a giant stack of photographs. And each photograph, so to speak, has its own frequency. And to be able to move through time is to basically to sync up with that specific frequency. So, whether that's, we experience time slips sometimes. I believe remote viewers, like the gentleman had mentioned before, is a facet of that, tuning into specific frequencies. So if we do have the ability to move through time, we have the ability again to change different things within time. And basically it will, if we go back in time and change something, even if you're not trying, again, that analogy I gave with crossing the street and the car trying to turn, even though I'm doing something very, very small, it has an effect on that person, could change a lot of aspects of their life. And so you have that kind of ripple effect, or the butterfly effect, kind of go through the timeline. And so it will actually change the future without really those, and that at that point in time realizing it, because it just changes that experience. But some people do have a recollection of, wait a second, things were this way. What in the world happened? So I believe the Mandela effect is our experience of something being changed in the past. Even though it might be subtle, it's going to have those ripple effects down the timeline. As far as the other question about going to Egypt and going back to the home planet through Stargate, The stargates that I was showing there at the old temples are really, those are no longer active. A lot of those temples are in ruins, and they were pieced back together. Like Hatshepsut's temple, the pyramid that was powering is completely obliterated. That sort of stuff. So those, even though you can go to those places and still feel a palpable energy, it's not really working so much anymore. However, all that said, there is a place in Egypt. It's a military base right there by Dashur, which they call Egypt's Area 51. And there are stories that are coming out of there that talk about them having an active Stargate. It resembles like an aurora borealis on the ground, and you step through this thing. There's no way for me to prove that. It's an anecdotal story coming out of there. I mean, it could be possible. That's what they used. I don't know, but so they do have stories, and there is conversation about active stargates in Egypt right now.
Cool. Did Risa have follow up on that or no?
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much. That was really great answers to my questions. Thank you.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Risa.
Any other questions in the room? Oh, got a question back here. Hang on. You're right there.
Well, thank you for coming and presenting all this interesting information. It's been really great. I have a question. I study dreams. I've been a strong dreamer all my life, and I've had many precognitive dreams where I see future events that actually happen. And so, from your point of view, would you say that being that human beings have that capacity, are we in a sense living in alternate dimensions? At night, we might travel in another dimension, and by day, we're yeah.
The short answer is yes. But I can elaborate on that a little bit. And I do have a chapter on dreams and travels through time. So, when you go to sleep, you enter into these different brainwave states, and your consciousness can become free floating at that point, and it could enter into different points in time. It could travel to other dimensions, travel to other worlds. So you have that ability to move about, and if we have the ability to do that while we are sleeping, that means when we are in an awake state, we would have the ability to do that as well. So when it comes to real-time travel and moving through other dimensions, we always look at like Back to the Future. You jump into a DeLorean, 88 miles per hour, flux capacitor, and we're off. That's a lot of fun, but I think that we have the capacity in real-time travel and really moving through a lot of these other things has more to do with meditation and consciousness rather than machinery.
Cool. All right. Is there any other questions in the chat or questions in the room here? Anything in the chat? Questions in the room, questions in the room, questions in the room. Seeing none. I want to thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out and visiting Minnesota MUFON. We're getting ready for snow here. Hopefully you're not going to hit by the same stuff we are, but everybody, Minnesota MUFON, let's give Mike Ricksecker a big round of applause for that presentation.
All right, thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. No, we had plenty of snow this year. Lake Erie was completely frozen over. We had a massive windstorm yesterday, gusts up to 80 miles per hour, knocked over a bunch of trees. But otherwise, spring is around the corner. From what I hear.
So you're no stranger to what we're going to be going through. All right, so cool. Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us and attending us both in person and online.